Croația a intrat în spațiul Schengen și în zona euro într-o singură zi. Bineînțeles, vorbim de muncă făcută timp de ani de zile în condiții de stabilitate politică. Un alt pas important făcut de croați a fost să-și dezvolte constant și relațiile cu statele decidente. În plus, pe lângă acest dublu succes, Croația se implică și în politici regionale. Împreună cu Polonia au început, de pildă, inițiativa celor Trei Mări. Andrei Plenkovici conduce executivul de la Zagreb de 7 ani. Ne-a explicat rețeta reușitelor țării lui. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport Diplomatic. Andrei Plenkovici, Prime Minister of Croatia, welcome again to Diplomatic Passport Program.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you.
Prime Minister, Croatia is the only country at the level of European Union that managed to be in the same time both in Schengen area and in Eurozone, so I think you deserve some congratulations. In the meantime, we know Romania and Bulgaria are still waiting to get to both Schengen and Eurozone. There are voices saying that perhaps the Adriatic LNG terminal helped you to convince Austria to allow you to get into Schengen. What would you answer to these voices?
Well, first of all, we are happy that we have attained our strategic objective of deeper integration both into the Schengen area and the Eurozone. I'm the Prime Minister since 2016, 7 years now, and my objective from the day one was to realize these two strategic goals for Croatia. And we worked hard on both deeper integrations. First of all, the Schengen process, we actually tried to catch up with the already advanced process that both Romania and Bulgaria had, because you started this exercise in 2011 and we got 286 different criteria for Schengen, and we fulfilled them, and we strengthened our control of the external border. So I would say this was essential: good fulfillment of the criteria and the effective control of the border and prevention of the illegal migration routes, the Eastern Mediterranean, Western Balkans. That was for Schengen. For Eurozone, we did, I would say, the most diligent process so far. We started 2017 and 18 and fulfilled the criteria as if we were from Switzerland rather than from Croatia. And this was excellent, and it happened so that we are the only country to have joined both Eurozone and Schengen on the same day of the same month and the same year. That was the 1st January 2023. So it was a lot of political work, but a lot of concrete work. I wouldn't say that the LNG terminal in Krk, which was also a project completely done in the course of my mandate, changed the mood. What we did was we showed what we can do, and we fulfilled it on time. Worked very hard with all the leaders, and that's why we joined. I was hoping that both Romania and Bulgaria would be in the same train, especially when it comes to Schengen with Eurozone. Yes. Romania didn't choose to join. Bulgaria wanted, but in a sense we were faster in that process, and we are happy now to support the ambitions of both Romania and Bulgaria regarding the Schengen, and also if Eurozone ever comes the topic of interest, we would be very happy to support. Croatia is now in a much better position in the context of the economic, financial, energy crisis, being in the Eurozone and having the European Stability Mechanism as a safety net behind. I think that our economy and our citizens are better protected.
You are in Bucharest now for the Three Seas Initiative project, and Croatia was the initiator of this project. If we look at the latest report, there are 58 projects, but only 5 of them are being done. Why is it taking so long?
Well, I would say that in 2016, when the Three Seas Initiative process, that is to say the linking the Baltic states, the Black Sea states and the Adriatic states of the European Union, it was a political project co-founded by Croatia, at the time our president, Madam Grabar-Kitarović, and also Poland in particular, which were sort of the main, I would say, actors, and Romania, of course, quickly being one of the most active countries. And it was launched at the level of the presidents. And the presidents in each of our countries have less executive power. That's why I'm coming here as a Prime Minister with leverage of interministerial cooperation, project management, involvement of side ministries, public companies, everybody who needs to be involved to get the process going, and also to obtain financing, because the projects are there from all of our countries and they have different forms of financing.
Well, Greece is becoming a new member of the Three Seas initiative. It happened in Bucharest. Why wasn't Greece invited from the very beginning?
Well, I think because it was not part of this triangle that linked the Baltic, Adriatic and the Black Sea. Somehow it was more the south. There belonged to the Ionian and the Aegean Sea, and this was the idea of these three seas which are involved. But I think that the Greek involvement, and I very much welcomed and supported yesterday's decision when President Sekalaryou was here, it will contribute to the cohesion of the group. And also it's very good that Moldova has obtained the same status of the associate partner, just as Ukraine has obtained it last year. And I think this will be good for the initiative.
And what are the plans for Ukraine and Moldova?
The idea is that the members of the Three Seas initiative are at the same time members of the European Union. This is the main criteria from the start. And with all the partners and other big countries supporting Germany, France, the United States, Japan, I think it is United Kingdom. I think it's very good that everybody is supporting this initiative. And I think that for the ambitions, for the European ambitions of Ukraine and Moldova, in terms of hoping to get the decisions as soon as possible to open the accession negotiations, this will facilitate their integration both politically and in project terms.
And what about the countries in the Western Balkans? There are similar plans for them, because we know some of them wanted to become EU members. This process is yet delayed. What about Three Seas initiatives? Are any plans?
Well, here when it comes to the sea, at least few of them would be immediately eligible. Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, by that criteria quickly. The ones who do not touch the seas are Serbia, Kosovo and North Macedonia. But I think even yesterday it was mentioned during the debate that the similar type of status of inclusion as it was granted to Ukraine and Moldova could be envisaged for these countries. So we would be happy if that happens, because it's good that we in all fora try to put an accent on what is important. And the importance of this initiative is better connection, north-south, let's say from Baltic to Adriatic. This was one of the most important issues, but also given Russia's aggression against Ukraine, given the consequences it has on all of us in terms of national situation, economically, energetically, financially, socially, the more cohesion we have, the more common projects we advocate, it's better.
Since I mentioned the fact that some Western Balkan countries are willing to become EU members, at the level of the EU we still have this debate, shall we enlarge it or not, the European Union? Of course, you know better than us here that there are a lot of unsolved problems in these countries. What will these countries bring to the European Union if become members? Problems or, you know,
well, everybody, we can't escape from our identity. That's what we are. Yeah. Unfortunately, the region of Southeast Europe has been very much burdened with all sorts of open issues that are there historically. Some of them, and many of them, legacy of the Serbia's Milosevic's greater Serbian policy and the aggression against Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Kosovo. So there is a lot of frustration with issues that remained unresolved. And from that point of view, even today, when you look at the situation between Serbia and Kosovo, it's one of those open issues. When you look at the difficulties in functioning of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's another example. When you look at the divisions within Montenegro, for instance, these are the critical examples of how complicated it is. Plus the fact that Kosovo has not been recognized by 5 EU member states, that also impedes the norm, including Romania. That also complicates the situation in terms of general atmosphere. But what has changed, certainly, and I have to admit that there is a certain part of contribution regarding the general approach to the enlargement policy because of Russia's policy, because Ukraine has now far more faster path towards the European Union. Moldova has a far more faster path towards the European Union. Georgia even has the same more faster path towards the European Union, and there is somehow feeling that the countries of Southeast Europe and the former neighborhood countries' policies are basically now on the same train. A couple of years ago, they wouldn't be even invited at the same meetings, let alone be treated in terms of narrated equally. So our position, and given our experience of the accession negotiations, is very simple. One, we should keep the principle of own merits. So no block approach, but treat everybody individually. Second, avoid by all means that the bilateral issues between countries who are unrelated with the acquis communautaire should not be the name of the game. Because if that happens, then those who are in are privileged to block those who are out, and then they create complications in the general perception of the process. But what is important to understand, and you Romanians, just as we Croats, know it very well, is the budgetary structure of the European Union. European Union's 80% of the budget is financed by 10 old member states, for now. And they are the net contributors. A number of us are still net beneficiaries, so-called cohesion countries. And those who are paying more want to have a predictable decision-making situation within the European Union, which is something that is relatively easy and logically to be understood. And therefore, I think the whole enlargement process will depend on the context of the budgetary contribution and the ways that we shall decide the decision-making and also the appointments of the European Union institutions. The experience of 2019, I was at the time one of the negotiators on behalf of the European People's Party. We are the sister party of PNL here in Romania. And it was a very tough process, not simple and not the most grateful exercise that I was participating in. It was difficult. Europe is politically more fragmented in terms of political parties and influence, and that certainly plays a role on the whole, I would say, feeling how the process is doing.
But then again, if we don't accept these countries in the European Union and we add to those Ukraine and Moldova, of course everyone has to fulfill the criteria, as you said. But in the meantime, is Europe present enough there? Because we see Russian influences in many Western Balkan countries. We see still in Moldova. We see it still in Ukraine.
Well, I think that over the last couple of years, there was a tectonic change. When I became a member of the European Council in 2016, I immediately started to advocate that we should put more priority towards the Western Balkans countries and also neighborhood countries, because there was a whole big void. In 2000, there was a first meeting of the leaders of the EU and the Western Balkans that happened in Zagreb. Chirac was French president at the time, so it was very much long ago. Then there was one meeting in 2003 in Thessaloniki, 20 years ago. And then there was a break of 15 years until Boyko Borisov hosted the summit in Sofia. Then there was one in Zagreb in 2020, unfortunately in COVID times via video conference. But after that, we basically meet every year. And now it's a totally different atmosphere. Leaders are there, they know all the leaders of the European Union. And I think gradually, with the fact that we created a group exercise and more pressure on this topic, there is a higher awareness among the EU leaders about the necessity to integrate the countries of the Southeast Europe towards the EU. Before that, it was not easy. I'll tell you, there was a break of 9 years that the European Council didn't even have one single sentence, let alone a paragraph, about the Western Balkans and its conclusions. And the European Council meets like at least 4 times a year. So it was neglected. Now that has been changed, addressed, and the European Union, especially through the Commission programs, is investing far more. And I always had a simple saying, look, if we are going to be hesitant, if we will not get involved, Russia will, China will, Turkey will, any other country that has a capacity to Saudi Arabia, or even the United States will be more present than Europe. And it doesn't make sense. It's the area of Europe which is completely encircled by the EU member states. So even if I look at the Croatian-Romanian relations, which we have a trade exchange between 600 and 700 million euros, if there was an integration of the countries of the Western Balkans, we would be more connected, because, you know, we are like 1 hour and 30 minutes by plane, Bucharest, Zagreb, we are literally neighbors, but it doesn't feel in the daily life, neither here in Bucharest nor in Zagreb.
If European Union starts to solve this issue with the Western Balkans, as you said, what shall European Union do regarding with the voices inside, so members of the bloc, that are saying that perhaps we should stop helping Ukraine, that the war is continuing because all of us, we are helping with Ukraine?
I'm completely against such a narrative. Croatia was a victim of aggression, and we know what it means to be attacked. You know, we know what it means when people are dying, when your infrastructure is being annihilated, when hundreds of thousands of your citizens become refugees, and that you have military or war damages that you need to repair for decades after that. So our policy as Croatia is a principled policy. Ukraine is a victim and Russia is an aggressor. We cooperate on the world scene on the basis of some values, some principles, and finally, and fundamentally, based on the international law. If we are going to neglect the values, the principles, the way that the world is governed, and the main, I would say, elements of how the whole global governance is functioning, and that is the multilateral based order based on the international law, then we can forget about everything what we are doing. And that's why we need to remain united, support Ukraine, first of all, give them enough financial means to function as a state in difficult situation. I mean, they have a huge territory that is now occupied. They have huge costs of maintaining the military structures, of functioning the state, the banking system, all the social services, everything that needs to be done, and also support them militarily. And I think we have all, within our possibilities, extended this help. If we are going to adopt among the EU member states, and the leaders in particular, the narrative that we should immediately seize everything and that Ukrainians should conciliate with the fact that they will lose more territory if I compare 23 to 2014, that would be a very wrong message. Because today it's Ukraine, tomorrow it's going to be someone else.
And yet this message somehow managed to get through, because if we look at the level of European Union, I think all of our countries have the same problem when it comes to parties from extreme right or accession that cannot be explained or can be explained. How do you see it?
Well, the European political horizon is getting more and more fragmented. There are a lot of external influences at the political parties within the European Union. And it's not a secret, many of them come from Russia as well. That is very clear, it has been clear for ages now. But that brings and puts more...
But, sorry for interrupting, is only Russia, or is the fact that maybe our politics as well disappoint people?
Well, there is a lot of influence, plus there are some political parties who have a genuine narrative in that direction. But I think that those of us who are, let's say, on the right side of history should be more vocal, more articulate, and more stronger in taking positions and explaining, doing the, as the French say, pédagogie politique vis-à-vis the citizens, because we live in the communication time where everybody is a communicator, everybody is an actor. We are not anymore in the scarce media landscape and this confusion and possibility for a citizen to obtain so much information, not necessarily always true and verified, gives a greater and more difficult task to the governments, to the political leaders, to explain what's going on. And this is what we are doing. I also have in Croatia many of actors who are very close to the narrative that you have more or less described, but we are holding the line, and we will hold the line. I think it's important to do it. Otherwise, we should not succumb to the narratives which clearly are convenient to one side in this war and this aggression. And I think for me it's a no-brainer. That's why we managed to maintain unity, to keep the unity so long with 11 packages of sanctions, with strong financial, political, economic, humanitarian and military support to Ukraine and the mobilization that we have seen, this has not happened after the Second World War. No one has received so much assistance and help as Ukraine did. And I know it's not easy to maintain it, because everything becomes, with the fact that the time passes, somehow a usual thing or a daily news. We are less shocked now than we were shocked in February 2022, but we should continue supporting Ukraine. And this was the message also that was present yesterday among the leaders' debate after the speech of President Zelensky.
The final question, since we are going to have European elections next year, considering the current situation with the extremist parties all over Europe, would you expect to have a new political landscape at the level of European Parliament, more extremists?
It will be more fragmented than it is today, but I'm sure that the majority which will be forged after the 9th of June elections will again be the majority of, let's say, the reasonable mainstream political parties that will form the majority and support the work of the future Commission. It was already clear last time in 2019 that we need a broader consensus. We do not disagree on many issues, so like the EPP and the progressives, or the Socialists and Democrats, or the Renew, or the ECR, or the Greens, but we should work together to form a relatively stable direction for the European executive to work in the next couple of years, because this mandate, when I look back, if you look at the narrative of 2019, what were we talking about? We were talking about the green transition and the digital transition, digitalization and decarbonization. When we look at what was happening, it was pandemic, COVID-19, it was the economic recovery, it was the energy crisis, and it was Russia's aggression against Ukraine. So from 2019 till 2023 or 24, the priorities have been altered completely, and nobody was actually expecting that this was going to happen. We started to realize what might happen only in 2021, not before,
Prime Minister,
when it comes to Russia's aggression to Ukraine.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure, and pleasure to be in Bucharest.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe contul nostru de Twitter. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!